And we now go to the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Gowdy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, for almost a year, there was an escalating pattern of violence directed towards the United States and other Western targets in Libya. Attacks on the consulate in Benghazi, attacks and assassination attempts on the British ambassador, attacks on the International Red Cross, attacks on courthouses, judges assassinated, culminating on September the 11th, and the murder of 4 Americans, including our ambassador to Libya. Before those 4 murders, Mr. Chairman, just a few weeks before that, our embassy in Libya said this to the Department of State: the security condition in Libya remains unpredictable, volatile, and violent. So, Mr. Chairman, despite what would appear to any reasonably objective observer as an escalating pattern of violence, including sophistication, coordination, and management, this administration blamed the murder of our ambassador and 3 others on a video. Don't take my word for it, Mr. Chairman. Let's look at what Ambassador Rice herself said. Our current assessment is that what happened in Benghazi was, quote, in fact, initially a spontaneous reaction. I don't know what the phrase in fact means in diplomatic legalese. I can tell you what it means in a courtroom, Mr. Chairman. It means it's a fact. And she went on national television and she said, not as this ambassador has said, that I'm not going to speculate, that I've got to get all the information. She said, in fact, this was a spontaneous reaction to what had just transpired hours before in Cairo, almost a copycat of the demonstrations against our facility in Cairo, which were prompted, of course, Mr. Chairman, by a video, is what she said. And then she proceeds to say the attack was spontaneous. I can think of few things, Mr. Chairman, more antithetical to spontaneity than a 12-month-long prologue of violence in Libya. And then she said she relied solely and squarely on the information the intelligence community provided. Mr. Chairman, I would like to have another hearing where we can ask Ambassador Rice under oath, who told you what when? You're going to blame the intelligence committee? You come before this committee and you tell us who told you it was a video. Who in the intelligence community said it? Who in the diplomatic community blamed this on a video? And then we move to Jay Carney, who's the spokesperson for the leader of the free world. This is what he said, Mr. Chairman. I'm saying based on information that our initial information that includes all information, we saw no evidence to back up claims by others that this was a pre-planned or premeditated attack. What we saw was evidence that it was sparked by the reaction to this video. And that is what we know thus far based on evidence, concrete evidence, close quote. Mr. Chairman, you know that in former life, I spent a little time in the courtroom. So when I hear the phrase concrete evidence, it means something to me. That's even stronger language than simply saying something is in fact. So 2 representatives of this administration gave demonstrably false statements, not just to us, but to our fellow citizens on national television. Now, is the explanation for those demonstrably false statements, as my colleague from Florida just asked, was it negligence? Was it just a reckless disregard for the truth? Or was it more nefarious than that? Mr. Chairman, the American people are reasonable. People understand investigations take time. People don't expect you to speculate until you have all the facts. What they will not forgive, Mr. Chairman, is being misled. We want our questions answered, and I want them answered by the people that went out before the American people and sought to mislead them by blaming this on a video when there is no evidence, concrete or otherwise, to support the assertions made by this administration. Mr. Chairman, I just had a conversation with Jason Chaffetz out back, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. He still gets emotional talking about what he saw in Libya. There were 4 brave Americans who died under circumstances that we can scarcely fathom. The terror, the fear, the anarchy of being killed in that fashion. They did what their country asked them to do. They stood post under dangerous circumstances even after requests for security were denied. They stood their post. The least we can do is stand this meager post that we've been assigned and demand that this administration speak the truth to the people it's supposed to serve. This was never about a video. It was never spontaneous. This is terror. And I want to know why we were lied to. And I yield back.
The ranking member, yes.
Yeah, I have to, as an officer of a court, I'm looking at the transcript from the date, and I'll read it if you want. I mean, to sit here and accuse one of our fellow citizens and Secretary Rice of lying, that's a very, very serious statement. And I'm very concerned about that because, I mean, she made it clear over and over again that she was dealing with the information that she had at that moment. And she said it over and I've looked at every single interview. And I think we have to be very careful. Just as the gentleman talks about he wants the truth and all that to come forth, I'd be happy to join and have Ms. Rice come up here. But I think we've got to be careful. A distinguished attorney, a distinguished woman, she made it emphatic. She said, this is the information I have at this moment.
Okay. I appreciate the gentleman's comment. I would inform the committee that the ranking member and I will be requesting a classified interview at the earliest possible date, perhaps as early as next week, that would be similar to the one that Ambassador Kennedy was in yesterday, and we'll inform both sides as soon as that's been granted. Additionally, it is our intention to follow all of the clues to where they lead, including how a week after this people could still say with certainty that in fact something was true that we now know not to be true. And I appreciate the ranking member's statement.
Thank you, Mr.
And I thank the gentleman from South Carolina. With that, we now go to the ever-patient senior member of the I'm sorry. We now go to the equally patient gentleman from Texas, Mr. Farenthold.
I'm not sure my wife would agree with you on patience, but...
Well, she's actually more patient than you. We've met her.
Anyway, after listening to Mr. Gowdy, we have a list of 4 brave Americans who gave their life for this country: Ambassador Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, and Tyrone Woods. And I think Mr. Gowdy hit it on the head. At best, this is negligence. We have an ongoing pattern of requests for more help and it not going up the chain of command. How many more people are we going to have to add to this list? And that's what I want to pursue in this line of questioning. And I'll start with Mrs. Lamb and Ambassador Kennedy. Are there other embassies similarly situated, or other State Department outposts that are asking for more help because of volatile situations that are not getting it?
In volatile locations, no, sir. RSOs just need to confer with their post management because it's a matter of bed space and logistical issues, and the request and the justification for what these personnel will do. And it's granted. If we don't have permanent assignments to put there, we immediately put temporarily assigned agents there.
So there's not a budget problem. It's not y'all don't have the money to do this?
Sir, if it's a volatile situation, we will move assets to cover that.
But would you have considered, at the time, did you consider Libya to be a volatile situation?
Sir, absolutely. And the desk officer talked and sent emails and came to an agreement with Eric Nordstrom. We were trying to get a clearly defined list of exactly what he needed out there.
So how long does this have to get tied up in bureaucratic red tape? To me, it's like saying, we're on fire, let's figure out how many firemen to send. Let's just send some.
Sir, we did provide everything that he asked for.
All right.
Sir, do you want my response to that, too? Thank you very much, sir. The answer is we did provide resources, and as a point of clarification following on your question, there's been a large discussion here about the SST team headed by Colonel Woods. The SST team was the Tripoli team.
Okay, I want to go to Mr. Nordstrom because he was there on the field. You guys I was talking to you guys about what's happening in D.C. Do you think it was on fire and you needed more people and you communicated that urgently up the chain of command?
I think that my cables stand as they are in terms of addressing the assertion from Das Land that there wasn't a specific or detailed list. For the members that are here, they can see that it's more than detailed. I also have a number of memorandums that went back as far as February detailing not just the numbers we needed, but the specific hours those people would be working and the duties.
And you didn't get them?
Well, I think the question to be asked is, again, as was asserted after my July 9th cable, that the plan was to source our security needs from the Department of State rather than from the Department of Defense.
Right.
I think the question is,
I mean,
were those resources ever
right.
provided? And I think the answer is no.
Okay. Do you have anything to add, Lieutenant Colonel Wood?
No.
Okay. I realize you guys don't, Lieutenant Colonel Wood, Mr. Nordstrom, y'all don't have the level of information that Ms. Lamb and Ambassador Kennedy have, but having been in the biz, so to speak, do you think there are other embassies out there and other State Department facilities similarly situated to what we had in Libya that are at risk today?
Sir, it is my impression that the cookie-cutter approach or some sort of a plan was being applied to us. That was what we felt down there in the field as we tried to work this situation. And certainly Libya met none of those requirements.
And as a former military person, historically it's been the Marines that have protected our embassy, and for a variety of political situations. And I need point no further than Iraq, with the huge amount of money we're spending to protect our embassy with contractors. When, for political reasons or whatever, we are not putting Marines in. Do you think that's a good idea, that we're doing that? We're not relying on the Marines?
So I think there's definitely a place for it. It needs to be studied, and I think each location is going to present you with a different situation that needs to be looked at for the merits, on its own merits.
Well, and I think as we have the Arab Spring coming and we have the freedom and democracy coming to these Arab states, we have got to be aware that sometimes there are going to be times of transitions when the countries are not stable. There may be election results that we don't like, or people who don't like us are elected. And I think we need to take this as a lesson that we need to be much more proactive and project more strength so this doesn't happen in times that can change literally in a matter of hours. I see I'm out of time, so I'll yield back.